I'm Jack from Jack Review Stuff, and today I'm going to be reading Dongeng by Anna Tan. Anna Tan is a very famous Penang author, and she writes fantasy novels as well. I am dyslexic, so this may be a challenge for me. Dongeng by Anna Tan. Writers in the Attic, to 8K days and being potatoes. Yes. Prelude. He hesitates at the edge of the realm. Before him, the rainforest stands, tall and mighty, enveloped in soft, cooling mists. There is the whisper of the wind in the leaves, the rumble of a waterfall in the distance, the rustling of creatures in the undergrowth, a call of birds winging their way through the air. Overlaying it now in his deep sigh as he looks up into the sky with tears in his eyes. Go, before he finds you, Sang Kancho whispers. Thank you, my friend, and goodbye. He turns his back on the realm, on his childhood, on his family, on his friends, on the very core of his being, and steps into the world of man, where his wife and his newborn son await him. He hopes that he has not been gone for too long. There is a sense of loss as the portal seals behind him with finality. Behind him there is a shriek he does not hear, a cry of rage raised because now he is unreachable, untouchable. Pengian traitor, it reverberates in the damp, dark caverns, burrows deep in the rich, fertile soil, screams in wild, open skies. Inhabitants, both magical and non-magical, stop to listen, and then go back to their busy lives. Nothing is the same again on both sides of the door. Wow, that's a prelude. Chapter 1. Sarah opened her eyes slowly. She could smell the forest, which confused her. Had she been on her way home, in the middle of the concrete jungle of Kuala Lumpur, hours from anything green? Yet besides the smell of fresh greenery and moisture, she could hear something like running water, a tap, a river. She shivered. Above her was a canopy of leaves. She sat up abruptly with a gasp, her eyes wild as she looked around her. What was she doing in the forest? Dia sudah bangun! Someone shouted in Malay. Her brain scrambled to translate. She's awake. She turned, holding the tattered green blanket nearer her to her body. The back of her mind was churning. Why was there a blanket? How long have I been here? How long have I been out? How did I get here? Her eyes fixed on the slender girl dressed in a dark green kebaya, who smiled and raised a tentative hand to wave. What? Who? Siapa tu? Sarah fumbled, her brain struggling to figure out what to say. The girl giggled. Tunggu! She turned and seemed to disappear into the forest. Sarah did as instructed. She waited. What else was there to do? She wrapped the blanket around her, starving of the cold. Why is it so cold? She surveyed her surroundings. She was in a small clearing surrounded by thick, towering trees. She'd been lying on something like a dais covered in grass and moss. At its base, 5 smooth stones lay scattered, as if someone had dropped them, as if they weren't as big as her palm. If they weren't as big as her palm, she'd think that someone had been playing batu seramban. A quick check showed that her handbag had landed up with her, and surprise, was intact with nothing missing. Getting her new identity card would have been a hassle, to say the least, besides having to cancel her supplementary credit card. Not that she'd ever used the thing. She picked up the stone, hefting it in her hand. Soon enough, the girl returned with 5 others. Sarah's hand curled around the stone, stepping back as she wondered if she would have to use it as a weapon. The 2 eldest, a male and female, stepped forward and bowed. Sarah imitated their gesture, wondering what was going on. Selamat datang, Pen Lipu Lara, Beta Men Gulau Alukan Keradiram anda di alam kami, said the man with a flourish of his hand. He was of a moderate height, with light brown skin and a wide smile. His hair was thick, a uniform peppery grey, 70-ish, nearing 80, Sarah guessed, mentally comparing him to the last time she'd seen her late grandfather. Sarah thought that he would have been very handsome when he was younger. As it was, the wrinkles and lines of his face added stature and majesty to his sharp features. Greetings, storyteller. We are honored to have you here in our realm, the woman beside him translated, copying his gesture. She too had fine features, looking rather like the Grand M in the James Bond movies, the one that died. Sarah couldn't remember the actress's real name, but with thinner, sharper lines. The pair looked at each other and smiled. Terima kasih? Sarah squeaked. For once in her life, she wished that she'd kept her Malay in practice. It wasn't as if she didn't understand or couldn't speak it, just that very often the words wouldn't come out as fluently as she wished. We understand, my dear. We will speak English with you. Oh, my goodness. After all, what we need from you is in that language, the woman said, laying a hand on her shoulder. What? Come, let us show you around, and then we will tell you what we need. Okay. What else would she say? Her hand tightened around the strap of her handbag as she reflectively put the stone into her bag as she followed them. Sarah wasn't sure if she should start asking questions, but as they hiked further into the forest and up through the steep path, she didn't have the breath to. All her energy was used up in trying to breathe while struggling to keep with the silent people who seemed to ghost along the winding track. It had been a long time since she had taken such a strenuous hike. She tried to remember when that had been and concluded never. Still, she pushed on. The older pair and a younger girl led the way, the other three flanking her sides and back, as if to make sure she didn't escape. Sarah looked around to see if she could escape. She was sure that she couldn't run as fast enough. Finally, they came to a stop. First of all, I suppose we should introduce ourselves. We are the hidden people. My husband here is Raja, king as you call it, and I am his permaisuri. I suppose that makes me a queen? She laughed. So calm. She laughed, a sound so calm and controlled. Sarah wondered if it were real. The hidden people? The queen dipped her head slightly. Yes, that's what we call ourselves. Sarah ran through her extensive knowledge of mythology, murmuring to herself. Hobbits? No. Fairies? No, not quite. Elves? Elves did quite seem to fit. She cast a critical eye on them. They were very beautiful people, though they didn't have pointy ears. Who even thought up of pointy ears anyway? And looked quite Pan-Asian. Nothing was making sense. Am I hallucinating? Am I in a coma? Maybe this is all just a very strange dream. She pinched herself. Nothing happened. How did it work, anyway? A pinch in a dream was still a dream pinch. She couldn't see how it might affect the real world. There was a short conference between the pair. Our young people, the Orang Banang? Your people call us the Orang Banang. Sarah's lips formed a silent O. Ooh. Her interest had always been in Western mythology, not the Eastern ones. However, no one had ever perfected living in the bubble. So she had heard of the Orang Bangang. However, tangentially, though, she didn't really know much about them, except that sometimes they stole children. That made her pause. Why did you kidnap me? I'm not a child. We know you're not, but you're the exact type of person who can help us. Help you? Help you do what? The Raja smiled. It wasn't a pleasant one. Sarah thought that there was something slightly predatory about it. Look around. Pengnipa Lara. Sarah followed the sweep of his hands, taking in the view. They were on top of a hill. In the far distance, she could see dark clouds gathering. The wind blew nice and cool, almost foreign, and Sarah shivered a little, hoping that it wouldn't rain. Down in the valley, she could make out something like a town, little on the small side, but the details were blurred. The rest of the view consisted of a rainforest and swamp. The wind shifted, and a thick, muggy smell blew into her face. That felt a little more like home. She rubbed her tired eyes. "I can't quite make out anything down there," she said, squinting to try and get a good view. The Permaisuri's smile looked rather sad. "Exactly." Then they were moving again, away from the edge of the cliff, and Sarah followed suit as they took a seat at the ground in a circle. The Permaisuri looked once again at her husband and cleared her throat. "Once, long time ago, we were a strong realm. The people of the Malay Peninsula knew and respected us, but we did not meet often. But when we did, there were significant events. But things have changed. We have been forgotten, and we have faded into the past, faded so far that ourselves cannot remember everything that we were meant to be. Which is why we need you, Penning Per Laura. We have heard your stories. We have seen the way your words, silent and hidden as they are, have recreated the people you pass by every day. And we, the hidden people, need you, the storyteller, to revive our stories again." The 6 Banyans looked at her expectantly. Sarah's gaze shifted from one face to another, confusion clouding her thoughts. "What? No." "You can try." Sarah shook her head. "No, this is crazy. I'm dreaming. This is not real." The Raja and Permaisuri rose to their feet silently. His face was hard, almost angry, hers unreadable. "This is real, believe me." The Permaisuri's lips closed in a thin, sharp line. Sarah shook her head again. "What?" The pair took a step back. The young girl clambered to her feet and ran to them, taking the Permaisuri's hand. Then he took another step back and faded from sight. Wait, you can't leave me here." Sarah turned to look at the remaining 3 Banyans. Their faces were stony with disappointment. Sarah couldn't help thinking that it was that very disappointment was all the same. They too exchanged glasses and nodded to themselves. "What does that mean?" Sarah got to her feet, hurrying after them, scrambling forwards. "Tunggu!" Down the path they went, gliding gracefully and silently, with Sarah panting behind them, crashing through the brush. Fear gripped her again. What would happen to her if she was left in this forest? Would the animals eat her? Then again, in all the time she'd been here, she hadn't even heard the call of a bird. Was this Malaysia? Or was she stranded somewhere else altogether? Belatedly, she remembered the royal couple's welcoming speech. "Realm," she said. But he said the word alam, something that she would have translated into world instead. Had she really stepped into another world? Soon she forgot the thought as the 3 Banyans came to a stop in front of her and held out their hands. "Where are we?" she asked. They pointed down a dark path. She stepped nearer, trying to see. "There? Why won't you speak to me?" Still, they gestured. She took small steps towards it, looking back at them frequently. At the edge of the shadows, she bent forwards to peer into the darkness. "I can't see." They pushed her forwards. At the end of her sentence, converting it into a shriek, she fell for a long time, screaming all the way. Chapter 2. In the next video, subscribe! Subscribe!